Hi, I'm Za, and I'm here today presenting the Emergence of Chasqui, which is a Zcash native messaging tool. I'm speaking on behalf of the Zingo Labs subculture of the Zcash community. And before I proceed on to this presentation, which was created by our design team, I just want to say a few bits about what Emergence and Chasqui are all about. We're saying emergence with respect to this messaging tool or communication tool because this is really a grassroots, a ground up, a groundswell even um, development where the Zcash community has long requested this feature or this ability to communicate using or leveraging private payments. And it's also emergent in the sense that I'll speak soon about the context we're operating in, but the really important part of that context is that we're standing on the shoulders of many giants. There's giant shoulders everywhere you look. And those giants have produced amazing innovations such that at this point, it's almost harder not to create this messaging tool. There's so many amazing developments that are either already off the shelf or really close to being off the shelf that just need to be snapped together to make this offering that has been demanded by the community. So this talk is going to be structured into a few pieces. We're going to discuss what our objective is. Why are we doing this? We're going to discuss the context that gave rise to that objective. And we're going to talk about how that context came to be and how we think our objective is going to feed back and hopefully change that context for the better. Then we'll present a demonstration of a proof of concept chat app that we have for internal test that we're hoping the wider Zcash community can adopt and dog food and help us refine and advance. Then I will offer a call to action, which is going to be partially, please use this thing and tell us what it can do and what you want it to do and what it can't do and help us out. And then finally, we'll open up to questions, which will hopefully be supported by the design and front-end specialists who understand all the different options that Chasqui is already offering. And hopefully the community will see some features, see some things they want, and have some questions about the flows they see. So without further ado, let me talk about our objectives. So humans have, been around as a species for 1 million or 2 million years, depending on, what you think a human is. And pretty early on in that process, we defined these things called tools, which were things from the environment that had been shaped by our minds, and then were used to augment our abilities to change the environment. And always from their emergence, 500,000 million, a long time ago, until the very recent, last few years, a tool was intuitively always a possessor of a few properties. One of those properties was that its purpose was to serve its user. And another close corollary was that it was never for the purpose of serving something other than the user. Whether it was my chart hand axe or my screwdriver, I picked it up and it did what I wanted. It was loyal to me. We think that even though there's fantastic new innovations and amazing new changes coming from human cognitive ability, those two properties should be invariant. That relationship between a human and a tool is primordial, and it's fundamentally what it means to be human. So we aim to participate in preserving those properties, and we do so, of course, for our children. Here's my daughter using a tool to serve her need, to show her where something is. That map is going to work for her and only for her. And we're hoping that those properties are going to be things that we can help build and maintain in the future. So that's our objective. And so now we need to explain the environment that objective has arisen in. And the modern environment, a critical, probably central, probably main use of our technology networks is to communicate with each other. And we communicate with each other with various applications that support that, and those applications can be analyzed and divided according to different properties. So one of the properties an application that's used for communication might have is it might have some mechanism for transferring value in a decentralized way. So it might be possible with more or less tight integration to transfer value with that application. So this generally in the decentralized case means some kind of cryptocurrency. An application might also respect the privacy, the private data of the message itself. So it might encrypt message data. It might encrypt it from end to end. That might be end-to-end encryption. That's a desirable property that some messaging applications have. And then, of course, there's also the data about the message, the metadata. Is that protected or shielded in some way? So those are properties that the applications might have. Some do, some don't. And the ones that we think are more interesting are the ones that aren't just applications that facilitate communication. They are, in fact, tools for communication. And we're going to see that in order to be a tool for communication, you must be loyal to the user's intent, and you must be loyal only to the user's intent. And we see that already for WhatsApp and Telegram, they've fallen out. They don't fulfill the criteria of tool. Therefore, we think that they are not something that we want to try to enhance and facilitate. They are sort of an alternative way of valuing human interaction, communication, and the economic activity of the mind, if you wish. And they do so in ways that we find to be suboptimal. We think they're suboptimal. And so now that we've divided the space between tools and inferior applications, so they're all applications, but some applications are tools, it stands to reason that we need to start to think about, given this divide between what's available, that's an interesting system of thought. It's an interesting conceptualization, nice theory. But what are the numbers? Can we look at what's actually out there and then start to slice the pie in a way that lets us see the things that are out there, how much of them are tools and how much of them are just applications? And so we did that very crudely and simply just by looking at number of installs from the Android store of these various types of applications. And here's a result that probably to a Zcash audience won't be very surprising, that I'll give now. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll give that almost immediately after I say this is a slightly simpler presentation of the same data, but instead of asking you to dig through the details of protocol names and cryptocurrency names and token names, we're just going to simplify things into red X doesn't have, gray checkmark sort of has, and green checkmark does have, so that you can more easily discriminate among cases. Okay, this is the quantitative data that I alluded to before. And as I alluded to before, it's not going to be surprising to the Zcash community that the vast majority of the activity, and this is both intellectual activity, it's conversational and social activity that is essential to being human, and it's also economic activity where utility is captured as value and then transferred around marketplaces. So as I said before, this distribution might be unsettling, but it's probably not surprising. Our language here is we think of those things which are not tools as parasitic in some sense. Part of that is because they're deceptive intrinsically, because as I said before, we've evolved for the last ballpark million years with the fundamental assumption that a technology that offers us more capabilities with respect to our environment is a tool, and tools serve users. For the first time recently, that's no longer the case. These things, these applications are not tools because they're not serving their users. They're not serving the participants in the conversation. They're serving other entities which are relatively difficult to know. So what they're actually doing is taking agency of the humans participating and extracting it, which is why parasite is actually the proper term for those messaging technologies. Now, this might look, kind of bad, but it gets both worse and better. And I will explain why in my next slide. But you might remember from the last slide that we talked about WhatsApp and Telegram as examples of messaging platforms that fail our criteria for beneficent for the human enterprise. But actually, let's take a moment here, and maybe some of you already noticed this, and maybe some of you are about to be surprised because that summary actually misses the largest player in the field, which is, according to some random websites I surveyed, the largest application by installs, by usage on the face of the planet. That's WeChat, known internally in China as Weixin, which is officially sanctioned by the People's Republic of China. It's an application that's produced by the Tencent company, and it manages all manner of communication and very explicitly and unapologetically parasitizes the users for the benefit of, in this case, the state of China. And so bear in mind that loyal tools for messaging were already a radically minor player. Yeah, you're proud you use Signal, you got your mom to use it, you use Matrix, whatever. That you're not normal. Zcashers are not representative. By radically, unambiguously, the vast majority of users use WhatsApp and Telegram. And now let's be explicit and clear about this. WhatsApp and Telegram, they are minority players. WeChat is significantly larger than them combined. So that should give you maybe a little bit of pause. Maybe this is old news to you because you're a Zcasher. But this is, in a way, this is good news because what it shows is that the marketplace for human communication is vast. It's almost so vast that it's a little bit difficult to quantify. It's dynamic, it's expanding, and it's radically misengineered. It's actually a marketplace for miscommunication. So that's the way things are, and that's actually good news for us, because what we have is the ability right now, with a little bit of effort and the right alignment of intention, to provide a different way for people to communicate. What Chasqui offers is a way in which the participants in a conversation can become the owners of the conversation. And that's because private payments, which Zcash is the core value proposition of Zcash, provide a mechanism by which participants in a network community can opt into and consensually control and move value without permission from an outside entity and without revealing information to an outside entity. And that's key, because without it being knowable who is consuming your information, you are in a state where you cannot consent. And the facts that we have seen from the chart that I just presented is that that information will be leveraged to create the largest single economy on Earth, which is one that exploits humans. So this this fact that our zero knowledge payment system permits us to transact in a way that does not reveal information to parasitic entities is one of the core necessary conditions to create an alternative economy where the people in the conversation are the owners of the conversation. So how are we going to do that? Chasqui is going to leverage the existing Zcash private payments infrastructure to build a new system, a new way of transferring information that bootstraps off existing messaging protocols like Signal, Session, Simplex, Matrix, uses those communication channels for the bulk of the standard operations that you need from a communication platform, transferring messages, introducing people, etc. But then uses the Zcash system for access to channels, for invitations, for publication of communication channels. In particular, we're excited about, in the near term, innovations in source authentication, although source authentication might be delegated to a different protocol stack like Signal or Matrix. Liberated payments, such that we can approach someone who cares nothing about cryptocurrency, nothing about privacy, maybe has heard nothing about either of them in their entire life. They're just a person walking down the street on their messaging app. The Zcasher could approach them, offer them a QR code. They scan the QR code, and now they are incorporated into a Zcash native messaging community. They have a Zcash native messaging tool. They have some Zcash. They just became a Zcasher, even though they've never, the word privacy was never uttered. The word Zcash was never uttered. They simply were onboarded in order to participate in a private conversation with their new friend that they met on the street. Okay, so that wraps up the explanation of the solution that we were proposing. And I'm now going to offer a little preview of a test app that we were able to roll out rather rapidly because we have facility with the React Native mobile development stack. This is a Signal-like application that in a few weeks our team was able to put together. In particular, it has a few things that are popular concepts in the Zcash community. They are organized lists of chats, so you can see person A, person B, person C, and then you can select one of them and see a conversation with the person. And then this also has the ability to search for a chat, so you could say, hey, I want to talk to Danica, and that search will then open up the conversation between Danica and I. Finally, this video is going to show what it looks like for a message to go from gossiped in the mempool to confirmed at the end. If that's of interest to you, keep an eye out for it. Here's the list of chats. Here we see the list of chats again, and then we search for a specific chat. There's wonky. Now we swipe. This is an example of what a chat would look like on the inside. And there at the end, it was really quick. You saw a message that was in the mempool transition to confirmed. All right. And now we'll offer a slightly longer demo. Here we see chats. Search for a chat. See the chat. Select it. See its contents. Another way to access a chat, slide left. Filter out name associated contacts. Add a contact. So associate an address with an M. Oh, new message came in, reordered. Here are your emojis. Smile, smile, smile. Mempool to confirmation on the lower right there. Oh, I want to send to Oscar. Come back to Michael, examine a particular transaction, examine another one. And that's it. So that's a quick demo of what we were able to produce in a relatively short time frame as an internal test mock-up demo of what's relatively easily possible in a Zcash Messenger. Now, it's important to know that we are aware of limitations and necessary new features before a real chat application can be live and mainstream as a Zcash native messaging tool. And so I want to wrap up or at least get to the questions with a call to action. If you are interested in this topic at all, if you know about what functionality and what capabilities can be delegated to the Signal protocol or the Matrix protocol, if you know about federating with Matrix servers, if you have ideas for how to bootstrap off the authentication used in SimpleX, and you want to help us, bring the Zcash payments together with those primitives and those constructs in a way that it helps us achieve our vision, that's awesome. We're interested. If you want to help us work out how to do liberated payments, we're interested. If you want to help us do source authentication, we're interested. If you have other ideas, we're interested. Pile on. Let's do this thing and allow people who are currently trapped in things like WhatsApp and WeChat to have a better relationship with technology, a better way of being. Thank you very much. And now I'll open it up to questions. What importance can a new user... I was not able to read that question. Could somebody read it off to me?
What importance can a new user see in this function, and how can they incorporate it into their daily life?
So the idea is that this tool will in many ways, in casual use be like Signal perhaps, but it will fundamentally change the degree of control that a person has over their conversation data. One example I thought of was, what about like a Discord style communication? Like there's a public channel, anyone can access it, and there's no need for privilege, there's no need for privacy. Is there a story that where even in that case, a Zcash native messaging tool has advantage over what Discord is offering? And I think for the most part, for many kinds of functionality in Discord, you need to log in. So it's easy if what you have is a private broadcast channel that Zcash provides to access the data in some public communication channel with just a view key, which means that no one but you knows you've accessed that data. So the answer is it gives you more control over your own conversations.
The next question is, can you share 3 reasons why Zcash global community members must use Chasqui instead of Signal?
Signal does not have a sustainable model for use. It's funded by MobileCoin in certain countries. It is funded by private donations, and it is likely funded by the US government. It is not possible to easily federate. So if you want to run your own servers to control your ability to message with Signal at a finer grain, that's not, at least not trivially possible. Those are 2 reasons. I think the third reason is that Signal doesn't provide an onboard protocol that I'm aware of, or an onboard flow that empowers the user to have Zcash have access to private payments out the gate.
What is the best onboarding flow for users to adopt Chasqui as a messaging alternative?
I already described it in the chat. What I would like to see is you scan a QR code, and now you're in a chat. You go from scanning the QR code to having a Signal-like chat experience. There was one other response I thought of for why should we use Chasqui instead of Signal? And the answer is, if Signal were good enough, it would be more than that tiny, tiny, tiny wedge of green in that giant sea of red. Clearly, it's inadequate.
How does the app deal with a 75 seconds block interval?
So for the messaging use case that we're proof of concepting right now, which may well not be what a Zcash native messaging tool looks like in the future, there's a few things. We pay attention to what's gossiped about in the mempool, primarily. So you can see messages instantaneously-ish when they enter the mempool, and it's clear that they're not confirmed on chain. But more in the intermediate to longer term future, we don't anticipate staying. It's not the plan to continue to use the Zcash blockchain's memo fields as the primary carrier of messaging data. So we'll be using the Zcash blockchain for things like onboarding, for things like policies around how much people pay to join a channel, or how much a channel solicits someone to, like, you could imagine there's some channel, some group you're interested in, and you can join if you pay some fee. Or you might have a channel where you're discussing some book and you really hope that the author would come and talk in that channel, and you can offer them a payment to join the channel. So the Zcash integration will be around things like access, publication, and the structure topology of the network, not so much the core data carry mechanism. That will probably be delegated to something like Matrix or Signal. So Signal will probably be, or possibly be, in the mix in the intermediate to long term.
For a new Zingo user, what benefit will Chasqui bring?
One more time?
Sorry, for a new Zingo user, what benefit will Chasqui bring?
For a new Zingo user, it's likely that they are a new Zingo user because of Chasqui. It's chat and messaging and interpersonal communication is where people are. It's where the economy that has been derived from intellectual and social activity has appeared. And so it's unlikely that it's relatively unlikely that a person's going to spontaneously, it's going to take more work to get a random person to become a Zingo user than it will to take a person to become a Zcash Chasqui chatter. So, and of course, under the hood, Zingo is the wallet that will support the Chasqui app in the near future. Although I would like to emphasize that I think that the differences between Zcash wallets might be overemphasized, and with our new interoperability standards from ZWIF, I foresee a future, I would like to see a future where everybody has multiple Zcash apps installed and that they are specialized to different purposes. So Chasqui is the thing that is for messaging, and then Zashi is the thing for storage of funds, and then maybe you have some kind of automated policy where you don't hold that much value in the relatively rapidly evolving chat application. You periodically delegate that to your Zashi vault.
We're at time, but I think can maybe answer a couple more questions. Does that sound okay?
Do my best.
With Chasqui, is Zingo meant to be the first private peer-to-peer messaging platform on chain and a way to motivate Zcash new adopters to use Zingo as a main wallet? Is this new feature to be included in wallets like Zashi in the near future?
Okay, so Chasqui, like, Zingo is the wallet that the Zingo Labs community has built and that we have. And we are innovating and adding features to that, which is the React Native, with its React Native stack, because we can evolve and adapt that UX and that UI very efficiently. And so we can run a lot of experiments. There is a few things. One thing is that we anticipate extracting value consensually. Maybe extracting is the wrong word. We anticipate receiving value that it was explicitly opted into by end users for messaging. So the random person on the street that was met earlier sends a message. There's some commission or fee taken from that message. That goes into a pot. That pot is for the purpose of cultivating, enhancing, and developing Zcash native messaging. So that pot isn't specific for any Zingo Labs app. It's not anticipated that it will be curated or managed by a committee of Zingoistas. It's a Zcash native messaging pot. And so funds that go into that pot, we expect to come out to run nodes that support a Zcash native messaging protocol that has no special affinity to any Zingo app, or to develop new parts of the Zcash protocol like source authentication or liberated payments, which can be used by anyone. So it's possible, and in the short term, it might be the case that for messaging, Chasqui is what people turn to because that's where the messaging development is going on. And maybe they turn to a different Zcash tool for a different use case, like secure storage of funds across generations, across organizations, across, if you just have a large amount of funds. So maybe Zashi is the right answer there. So in the short term, we hope to develop a messenger that people like and use, but we don't anticipate funding an exclusive messaging app that's going to squeeze out other wallets or applications in the space. We actually think that there's too much space and that wallets are going to diversify into whole different areas. So we might get lonely inside the messaging space.
There's a clarifying question here. Is Chasqui an independent app from Zingo, or are they the same? Will Chasqui be inside Zingo Wallet?
They're the same. We're not going to do a ground-up re-implementation of a wallet. Although, having said that, we have rewritten most of Zingo's code in the last year. But we certainly want to develop reusable patterns that other Zcasher projects can use. UniFFI to provide language bindings for multiple languages, a library API or SDK for the front end for the React Native layer. So even if what you want to do is like a Zcash native messaging tool in React Native, we hope to provide an open source library to facilitate you doing that. So yeah, we're building on what we have, which is Zingo, but we anticipate building things in a way that is modular and shareable and useful across the ecosystem.
I think just one last question. What is the difference between sending encrypted memos from a wallet and using Chasqui?
As of today, at the Rust layer, not much. eWallet and Zashi have at least, I think, EasyCache as well. All support sending and receiving memos on chain, and yeah, that's a basic wallet functionality.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.